Chapter 6. I woke up next to my phone and plugged it in quickly. It had drained to 50% at this point. I must have fallen asleep while talking to Natsuki. The call had ended, and I just wasn't sure if it was I who hung up or maybe I had simply rolled over in my sleep. I do remember that she fell asleep before I did, but I wasn't sure if I should hang up the call or not. I couldn't get out of Natsuki what the matter was, and it was really getting to me then, even at the start of the day. I ate breakfast and got ready to leave for school. I grabbed the food that I'd made for her, and a spare jacket for her as well. Classes were coming to a slow as we neared the winter vacation, and I was rather glad that classes were easing up. I rarely actually got all of my work done, mainly due to the fact that I was rather lazy. The bell rang and I headed out for lunch. From morning till then, all I could think about was her. I was worried about Natsuki. I wanted to know what had got her so upset. Between the bruise that I'd seen the day before, and now seeing the condition of where she lived, I knew she didn't have the best living conditions. I mean, I knew what it was to do without, but she certainly seemed to have it worse than I did. I walked to the tree to find Natsuki waiting there for me. "Natsuki," I called, as I hurried over to her. "Natsuki, are you okay?" I asked. She didn't say anything until I reached her, at which point she simply threw herself onto me and hugged me. I felt her body shake as she cried into my chest. I rested my chin upon her head and rubbed her back gently. I hadn't comforted somebody in years, but there was something about Natsuki that made me feel like I wanted to really keep her safe, like I really wanted to protect her. Natsuki and I sat beneath the tree. She faced me as she ate the food that I'd brought her. "So that's why you were crying last night?" "Mm-hmm," she replied, still sniffling. "But I don't get it. If your dad goes out and he drinks all the time, why can't he buy some food for you? I mean, look, I get it, I know, I understand he's an alcoholic, but..." I stopped as I tried to simply understand all that she had told me. She said that after we had talked, she went to the cupboard and found a package of instant ramen which she ate for dinner. Her father came home drunk, as usual, she explained, and became angry that she had ate all the food. He threw a bottle at her and then stormed off to the store. "He does get food, just not food for me," she replied. When he got back, well, you see, he put away the food, and then he came up to my room. He kicked the door in, and then he pinned me to the wall, and he yelled. He said that all the food in the fridge is his, and all the food in the cabinet is his, and then he gave me a box, and he said that that was my food for the next 2 weeks as punishment. Is this why you're always hungry at school?" I asked. She nodded before continuing. "My father hates me. All I do is bother him. He says I remind him of Mama. She cheated on him when I was younger. Papa came home, got in an argument with them. The man Mama was with came at Papa with a knife. Papa put him in the hospital. When they went to divorce court, Papa argued that he should get to keep me since it was Mama's boyfriend who became violent in his house. Since he'd already won that case, the judge gave it to him and he let me stay." I couldn't believe any of what she was saying. It was just so out there. It wasn't that I thought she was lying, it's just I couldn't believe so much could happen. At that point, all words had failed me. I thought Papa loved me. I was so happy. I was afraid of Mama's boyfriend, but I realized Papa didn't love me. He just wanted to hurt Mama. He wanted to take everything from her. Natsuki. He doesn't give a shit about me. He wouldn't even care if I were gone. No one would, Natsuki cried. Natsuki, I said as I held her chin. I care. I give a shit. You're my friend. Believe it or not, you really are my friend. My only friend. I am? She asked. Well, yeah. I don't have many friends, to be honest. I guess people have always looked me over. I got used to it, so, I just stopped bothering to try, I stated. Then why did you try to help me? She asked. The day we met. You made an effort, didn't you? She asked. You needed help. Something inside of me, I couldn't sit idly by. I don't know. I can't really explain it to you, Natsuki. I hardly know you, really. But still, I feel so close to you, and I feel this need to see you be well. I know we've only known each other for a small amount of time, but there's something about you. You're different. I guess I felt the same about you, said Natsuki, wiping a final tear. But I do have one other friend. Kind of. Yuri from the literature club. We're friends. Well, we used to be friends. But as time went on, we've drifted apart, got into different things. She got into horror, and I just didn't want to read about all the bullshit that already goes on in my life. She said I needed to get over my childhood. Natsuki's face looked even more dejected than I'd seen her before. I could tell that this was something that hit deep. Perhaps even deeper than the betrayal of her father and the betrayal of her mother. When I met you that day, I was crying because she and I had broken off our friendship. It was so stupid. She called manga stupid and childish garbage, and I lost it. I snapped at her. I called her an emo bitch. And then she said I was a pathetic loser who nobody loved. Natsuki choked at those words. And she's right. She took the hand that I had rested on her shoulder and moved it off, to which I grabbed her hand and kissed it. Natsuki became flushed red with embarrassment. You shouldn't do something like that to somebody you don't really like. Well, it's a damn good thing I really like you. I pet back the hair which rested over her eyes, and she looked at me with wide eyes as I looked back deep into her beautiful pink eyes. There was something about Natsuki, something that I couldn't deny, and I knew that I really loved her. Chapter 7. I held Natsuki for the rest of lunch while she got warm under my coat. We watched some videos about music she liked and anime compilations for shows that she was into. It felt right being with her like this, as if all the troubles that we had just talked about were somehow further. Though inside of me I was angry, furious even, about the neglect and abuse she was facing back at home. But in the moment, all that mattered to me was making sure that she could feel happy, even if it meant that I had to bottle up my rage. When the bell rang, we took our time to depart, at last saying goodbye until the club meeting at the end of the day. And just as the day before, I simply could not wait for the end of the day to come. Literature class came once more, and eagerly I waited through the lesson. The bell rang, and I remained seated while I waited for the club meeting to begin. I read the book Monica had gave me yesterday, until at last she arrived. "Oh, hello again," she beamed. "Hello, Monica," I replied. I set the book down and gave her my attention. "How do you like it so far?" she asked. "It's pretty good," I answered. I actually did quite like the book, and I'd found myself reading it during class and some of my other less busy classes. Sayori entered with her boyfriend, and the two sat somewhat close to the front, though still far enough away from us that they could have a bit of privacy. They poked and prodded one another lovingly. Monica sat on the desk next to me and asked, "So, just out of curiosity, what exactly made you join us?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, sorry if this comes off as rude, but to be honest, I don't really think you have much of a knack for reading, do you? Are you and Natsuki close, perhaps? I've never seen you with her before," asked Monica. "Oh." I honestly wasn't sure how to answer this. "Well, you see, we only met recently. She was letting me know of some cool clubs to join," I stated. "I see." Monica paused as if thinking for a moment before she got up and walked to the back where Natsuki and I had read manga the day before. Yuri entered and sat in the desk to my left. However, rather than saying hi, she looked away from me before turning her head to face forward with a small smile. "I take it you're the new member?" asked Yuri, with a small laugh. "Yeah. I think we met yesterday," I replied. "You're Yuri, right?" She nodded and went on smiling, still not looking at me directly. Natsuki walked in, making sure not to acknowledge Yuri as she walked past. "Oh, hello, Monica," she said with her eyes closed. "Welcome back, Natsuki." Monica stopped as Natsuki hopped up and sat on my desk. Don't you want to sit in a chair?" asked Monica. Natsuki pouted and shook her head, acting like a child and crossing her arms. I had to admit that it was kind of cute, and it sort of cheered me up from thinking about all of Natsuki's troubles at the moment. It was nice to see her like this, calm and sort of innocent in a way. "Well, all right. In that case, today's activities begin. And I thought that we might go ahead and mix things up with a bit of trivia, huh?" "Oh, come on. Yuri's gonna win that easy," cried Sayori. Monica lifted a finger and stated, "Not exactly. It's on historical events found in literature." "Huh?" Sayori's boyfriend exclaimed. "I too do not understand," stated Yuri. "I'll explain then. I think that we as a literature club have become too engrossed in reading fiction. Perhaps we ought to read more historical pieces. Historical fiction's okay, but what I mean is less fantasy and less of the what-ifs," said Monica, as she leaned forward. "Sounds good to me," I replied in lieu of the other's silence. Monica smiled back at me before heading to the computer up at the front of the class. "I made a PowerPoint for this," she stated. She pulled down the projector screen and the trivia began. "On what historical event was the book Grapes of Wrath based upon?" asked Monica. Yuri raised her hand before stating, "The Dust Bowl of Oklahoma." Monica nodded and moved on to the next slide. By the end of class, Yuri was in the lead, followed by Natsuki and I, and finally Sayori and her boyfriend, who had managed to score several points of their own. "All right then, I guess this is the final question," said Monica. "What were the American forces led by Theodore Roosevelt known as in the Spanish-American War?" The room fell silent as we all thought this over. I remember this, I thought to myself. I know the answer," I called. I noticed everybody's eyes turned to me. "It was, the Rough Riders, right?" "That's correct. It looks like you and Natsuki are tied with Yuri," said Monica as she turned off the projector. "It's a good thing I brought 2 prizes in that case." Monica pulled 2 packaged slices of cake and handed one to each of us before announcing, "All right, club dismissed." Yuri walked up to me, reaching out a hand. Her eyes still didn't meet mine, though she was facing me now. "Fair game?" she said with a smile. I shook her hand and I felt her long, cool fingers as they tensed around mine. She giggled before running out the door. Said Natsuki. "And who does she think she is?" Natsuki and I walked home. She ate the slice of cake on our way to her place. She wasn't bouncy as the day before, but that was most likely on account of the fact that she was eating. A small piece of cake landed on my jacket that she was wearing, to which she quickly put that part of the jacket in her mouth to suck the icing off. I giggled. "What?" she exclaimed. "Nothing. It's just... Look, sorry for drooling on your jacket, but it's good," she objected. No, it's not that. It's just... well, it's cute," I replied. Natsuki blushed before saying, "Don't call me cute, dummy." "I mean it. And so do I." "Well, alright, I guess I'll try my best not to," I conceded. "Good. You better," she smiled, clearly enjoying her victory. "So how good is the cake?" I asked. "Try it," she shouted as she stuffed a spoon into my mouth. The cake was sweet and moist, and it melted in my mouth before I could even chew it. "Aw, you got it all over your face," she stated. I saw her look up at me as I felt my face for where it was and wiped it off. I noticed her eyes remained fixed on it. I stopped and looked into her eyes, and I could see a longing in them. You missed a spot," she said shakily. She moved in slowly and planted the lightest of kisses on my cheek where I had just wiped the frosting from. Did she feel the same way that I was in that moment? Did she? There was only one way to find out. "Hey, you've got some on your face too," I remarked. A tiny bit of frosting sat just above her lip, and I leaned down to kiss her. She didn't move. She only closed her eyes a bit as we moved apart. I stared into her eyes when at last she opened them, and we moved in slowly again, each of us closing our eyes before planting our lips on one another. I wrapped my arms around her small frame as she did the same for me, and in this small moment I was completely overwhelmed with bliss. Until the sound of old brakes caught my attention as a car came to an idle behind us. "What the hell are you two doing?" growled a voice from behind me.